Hi, this is Jessica Pettit, and today, who do I have the pleasure talking to?
Hello, this is Glen Guyton coming to you from the great state of Texas.
Excellent. And Glenn, how did you start doing anything you want to talk about under the diversity umbrella?
Wow. Well, interestingly enough, I was hired to work for a religious institution to help them work at issues of diversity and inclusion. The organization I work for is probably 98% people from a Swiss German heritage. And so there are a number of racial ethnic congregations and leaders that they relate to. And I was actually hired to help them at making sure the programs were more inclusive of those groups of people.
Excellent. When I decided to do these interviews, I came up with some kind of open-ended questions that I'm hoping the people I'm interviewing will go wherever you want to go. So there's no correct answer. It's your answer.
No right or wrong answer. Okay.
Right. So the first one is the concept of diversity dividend, which I think sometimes speaks to kind of the return on investment profits that we get to why diversity is important. I was told yesterday that no one in corporate world cares about diversity. I don't think that's true. So under the idea of diversity dividend, can you talk a little bit about the investment, the action, and the return?
Right. Well, I think first and foremost, if you're thinking about it from a profit-making standpoint, in some organizations, especially ones, if you're talking about some public organizations where you do have to reach a broad constituency, you want to be able to meet the needs of a diverse group of people in the public sector, the nonprofit world, the religious world. Sometimes you want to do the right thing because you have a broad constituency that you need to be able to meet the needs of those people effectively. But as you start thinking about the corporate world, well, first of all, you have to invest in diversity. We see it over and over again when these large companies have monolithic marketing departments. How in the world will you ever increase your market share if you don't know your customer? How costly is it when you launch $1 million campaign only to find out that it's offensive to certain demographics? Right. Over and over again. We just had one recently where you had probably as far as skin tone, the whitest person you can imagine wearing a sweater, talking about Wakanda forever. And so some of those things you wonder, who was in the room when these decisions were being made? Mm-hmm. That's one of the key things I'd say. Hey, you want to have the right people in the room so that you can effectively reach your goals. But Absolutely. The other part of it is that who wants stress in their life? I'm in my everyday job. I'm a C-level type of person, and I want less stress as I go about my daily business. And if we are culturally competent, if we understand how to effectively manage our workforce and engage with our clients, we have a lot less stress in achieving our goals.
I think that's awesome. And I think what's fascinating to me, I'm really glad you mentioned this, is when I think about campaigns or slogans or there's no reason to feel guilty or ashamed if you're aware you don't know everything.
Oh, yeah.
So something that you come up with that you think is super sticky and we should do it could mean something. You might want to Google the term first. Right?
That's right. Yeah. Just ask somebody, I'm like, how, and I don't know, just, recently we had, I don't know, can I mention a company name?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Yeah. So Prada just came out with these little dolls that they came out for the holidays. And one of them just looks like the stereotypical Pickaninny kind of caricature with the big red lips and dark. They were supposed to be little monkeys. And they had all different kinds, but those, of course, stood out to many people. And I'm like, who didn't know that was going to be offensive to a certain demographic? Either these companies are intentionally provoking divisiveness in their marketing, or they just haven't spent any time with diversity and inclusion.
Or, I think, too, people are really entertained by something that they don't realize is an offensive stereotype.
Right. Yeah,
You know,
exactly. Yeah.
I also think about Taco Bell, at least in my lifespan.
Uh-huh.
Every 6 weeks, I think they get some new item that's made from the exact same ingredients. Which, if you think about it, kind of genius. And
It is. Yeah.
in my lifespan, there have been at least 3 things that if they knew like hip slang Spanish words, they would not have named their thing the thing that they are naming it.
Right. Right.
Because it's super offensive words, it's sex acts, it's body parts.
Right. Right. Right.
Don't name it. Don't name your product that. But
Yeah.
use the Googles, kids. Use the
That's
Googles.
right. It's so easy this day and age.
Or have a diverse team that you can actually have a conversation at work about. Like, I don't think that word you're using means what you think it means.
Right. Yep, exactly.
Awesome. All right, here's another thing that has come up quite a bit in my work, and that is asterisk other duties assigned. Typically, this is the last line of a job description, which usually gives the supervisor some flexibility potentially to like assign you other things.
Yeah.
But when talking from a diversity lens, asterisk other duties assigned also is the emotional labor and additional work of being the only one.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever you're the only one of, and that you end up being the chair of an unofficial affinity group, which is exhausting. It uses up resources and time and energy, and it's usually not even part of your job evaluation.
Right.
Tell me, what is asterisk other duties assigned in your life?
Well, interestingly enough, it has changed as I have matured and grown, and so when you are young, you're always the tech person or you represent the voice of the youth in the system. And you're always singled out to express your opinion for the whole. And of course, that always happens as a person of color, as an African-American person. You're always called on to speak for that group of people, or you have to be the one to really point out where there is systemic racism in the system, where there's systems of injustice. And it's just, you sit in a meeting, you're the only one, a question that is asked and everyone turns and looks at you.
Yep.
It's like, hey, I don't speak for every person of color in the world. I have my own implicit bias. I have my own story. I am in touch with what would be considered a traditional African-American family, but what does that mean on a larger scale with some of the things that we're talking about? And it's just a lot of pressure that comes with that. I'm used to being I'm used to being the first in a number of circumstances. And, people try to put this burden on you, especially after Obama. Oh, you're like the whatever version of Obama. I'm like, no, don't put that on me. I'm not trying to be the savior or try to represent this group as a whole. Now, I will do my best because I do know that those eyeballs are on me, but I really have to. And I think this is good for other people that may be only like the only woman or the first person that crosses gender barriers, sexuality barriers. Don't feel like you have to be the savior or the representative for an entire group of people because you aren't. You just be the best person that you can be.
Absolutely. So in our kind of pre-work, one of the things I asked you about was your strongest area and why. And I loved your answer because it talked about other words that kind of are buzzwords, but I liked how you talked about them. So you talked about your strength being cultural competency, but also leading directly to institutional change.
Right.
Those are big buzzwords, but not how you do them. Talk to me about those words and how you make them real and not just like mural fodder.
Yeah. Well, I look at, I tell people culture is the way we do things around here. And so we each have culture, subcultures. And so we need to be competent of again, our own bias of how we work at these things, but we have to have a knowledge, and we also have to understand what our targets are. I do training and I tell people, I say, hey, you can be just as racist or just as sexist as you want to be. I say, let's just be honest about what your goals are when you talk about diversity and inclusion. What are the things that you want to target? Do you have the right people in the room when you start looking at intercultural competency and realize what your bias is? And I said, then as we start thinking about changing institutions and changing systems, a lot of times we do this surface work or we do work that gets a lot of attention. But in order for change to really stick, it has to become a part of the culture. It has to become institutionalized. And then we probably get to a point where people get settled and they say, hey, this is not good enough. Another group comes in and interjects change into the system and the cycle starts all over again. But, it's a lot of times people say, hey, let's practice diversity and inclusion, but they have no idea what aspect of it they really want to talk about. They don't have the people that are able to speak intelligently into these things, and they haven't even taken the time to figure out how effectively they deal with differences in their own life.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Now, the favorite difference that you mentioned that you like to talk about, if you get the chance, was generational differences. What approach do you take of generational differences in diversity work?
Yeah, I like that just because I am, I was a youth pastor for a number of years. I worked with young people for a number of years, and I just see the importance of working across generations. Now everyone's blaming the millennials for everything. I say, hey, do y'all realize like millennials are like in their mid 30s now, right? You really need to be getting ready for Gen Z and people like my kids who are coming up. One of the most helpful things I do is kind of show them what are the major things that were happening in the formative years of each generation. Was it the Cold War? Was it Vietnam? Was it 9/11? Was it the economic crisis of 2009? Some of the most traumatic things that have happened when we were forming shape who we are generationally. Also, again, technology is a big part of that, how we relate to technology and use technology. Those are some of the things I try to talk about, especially when you get with boomers and millennials and, Gen X. I don't know what happened to Gen X. I feel like they've just left us out of all of this.
I know. I was going to say, every time we talk about this, we talk about boomers and Gen X, and I'm like, Kurt Cobain's death? Hello? How does that not register? We came up with Pearl Jam and Nirvana. Don't leave us out of the conversation.
Right. We came up with hip hop and MTV. Hey, we get a lot of...
We're already upset.
So that's it. I say, we have to work across generations and understand how that, in the workplace especially, what do we think about collaboration? What is it that means success for us in each generation? What kind of care? This is my biggest challenge, because I like to poke fun at the millennials like everybody else. But I say, hey, look, millennials, you better watch out, because Gen Z was raised by Gen X. So they're more X than they are millennial. So it's going to be another paradigm shift that people have to get ready for, because my kid, my daughter just graduated from college. She's 21. She's entering the workplace. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and what's interesting, and you didn't do this explicitly, but I'm going to make you. Okay. But in talking about dealing with generational differences inside of a diversity conversation, you also use the term that some people may not know or do, but use it in a different way. But the code switching that is required in monitoring changing audiences and dynamics as a trainer, but the code switching you also have to do when you speak to that, like collaborating across those differences. Can you talk a little bit to me about what code switching means for you personally as a professional? You're also, one of the fun facts that sets you apart is that you're one of the first African-American CEOs. How did the code switching show up from that job as a youth pastor, as a father, as a diversity trainer? It's a useful skill that those of us with visible dominant identities, we have to learn code switching on the workplace, not in a survival place. Yeah.
And that's really interesting. I wish I had time. I do this assessment called the IDI, Intercultural Development.
Tell us about it. It's
inventory. Okay, yeah. Well, so it's an assessment that you can take that really deals with how well you deal with differences. Most people use it to think about cultural differences, probably maybe from more ethnicity and nationality based differences. But I think it's effective more broadly. But there are some people that are on one end of this 5-point scale where they're in denial. Like the only perspective they can see the world in is their perspective. It's kind of like I'm Columbus. I discovered America. That's the only. It wasn't here until I arrived. That's my reality. My reality is the only reality.
Yeah. 73 million people might possibly disagree with Columbus.
Right. And then you have people on the other end of the spectrum. It's called adaptation, where you can basically you're effective almost at code switching. You can not only see the world from your viewpoint, but you can step into someone else's shoes and see through their eyes. And so as a person of color, African-American person, code switching, I think, is important to be successful, because I have to learn how to communicate in the same manner that the dominant culture communicates to be effective. I have to know all of the rules. I have to know the language. I have to even know how to temper my tone in a manner that's not offensive. But then at the same time, when I go back to my own community, I have to be able to relate and not be seen as a sellout, or not to be seen like I'm above other people. And so you learn to live in these different cultures, and it just becomes natural if you're not in the dominant culture. I can go from a Wall Street boardroom to hanging out with the fellas in the hood. Now, my kids can't do that as effectively as I can, because they don't have the same upbringing that I had. They have, because I have elevated myself, I guess, on the socio-economic scale, their experience in life is different. But also because of their youth, they've grown up in a different world where they have more access to people. You have the internet, Facebook, social media. The lines that were there with some generations don't exist anymore with the younger generation, because they have a different set of problems. But how they communicate, how they see the world, and what they are exposed to is much broader. They don't really have, they can go Google, but they don't really have to go search to be informed to some extent about other cultures, whereas as I had to be more intentional. But I think that the advantage maybe we have as Generation X is that when we did get exposed to other cultures, it was at a much deeper level than probably the younger generation gets now, because all they see is the posts. They don't maybe have the depth of that knowledge.
They're lacking the social infrastructure.
Right.
They have to have it now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like an example. So code switching, at least how I've been introduced to it primarily as a white person, was people of color who have to adjust in different environments based on how many other people of color and what kind of people of color are in the space.
Yeah.
So I just want to give an example of a time where I really realized, I'm doing the thing.
Yeah.
So I identify as a more masculine person. I identify as a woman, but I'm not a particularly feminine woman.
Right.
And when I got a job in Arizona, I started my job in December. And so summer is coming, right? Not winter is coming, but summer is coming.
Yeah.
And I've been told in Phoenix it's going to be like 120. How does one dress for the office? And what does one wear?
Yeah.
So I went to my boss, who is a very feminine Hawaiian woman, and I asked, okay, so I need to prepare for summer office wardrobe.
Yeah.
How hot is it? How much do you compensate for air conditioning? What do you wear?
Yeah.
And she's like, well, I usually just wear a nice silk camisole, and then I bring a cardigan to work. And I was like, what's a camisole? What? I looked it up. I'm like, I'm not wearing a silk tank to work. What? Right? So then I went to her boss, who is incredibly, impeccably dressed African-American man. I was like, what do you wear to work in the summer?
Yeah.
And he's like, nothing you would wear. And I was like, let's test that.
Yeah, let's test that for a minute.
Yeah. And so then he told me that he typically wears short sleeve, button down collar shirt, seersucker, cotton.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's nice. Yeah.
And I was like, okay. So, I went to Ross because I wasn't being paid a lot.
Okay, all right.
I went to the men's section. I found those shirts, and I bought bowling shirts and Hawaiian shirts because I'm also colorful, right?
Yeah.
But I had to figure out how to dress for what's appropriate in my office, what's appropriate in Arizona in the summer, but also what fit me, right? So silk camisole ain't gonna do it. So what is considered professional but still masculine enough for me to feel comfortable in it? Yeah. That is the first time I really noticed, wait a minute, I got to figure out how to navigate that. So great answer.
Yep.
Okay. When asked about something that we don't know about you.
Yeah, yeah. Did I say something? Yeah, what did I say?
You've jumped out of an airplane
I
five
did
times.
five times. I was much younger, and I was in I went to the Air Force Academy, so that was one of my summer programs. And
I thought you were addicted to skydiving.
no. I just did it when I was younger. 5 times. Got my jump wings, free fall jumps in Colorado. So it was fun. It's a nice story I like to tell people. Oh wow, you've done that. Not many people have skydived.
I know, that's funny.
Yeah.
Okay, so couple more questions. Here we go. What have you changed your mind about lately?
Ooh, what have I changed my mind about? Oh man, I like a lot of things changed my mind. I probably, since I've been doing this work, I think I've really actually become a lot more progressive in my thinking. I mean, if that's the word, I hate using terms like that. But, as far as just being able to accept differences in my own personal life, I tell people, man, I'm becoming more progressive than I ever thought I would be. But it's just, I think as you get older, I see my kids and how they interact with the world. It's just, I don't have time to be mad at anybody and just drawing a whole bunch of arbitrary lives. Let people live their lives. You live your life, and hopefully we can find some things that we agree about and we can work on together. I'm making some decisions now with my organization where I'm dealing with I guess I can say this, dealing with some younger people. And, I know we have different levels of experience. And so, the thing I'm wrestling with is, should I be angry because of what's going on, or should I be more empathetic as an older person, understanding that I have some things to offer maybe that this other person doesn't. And as we negotiate things like that, maybe they're at a disadvantage. And instead of just using that just to destroy somebody, maybe you have to use that to as an opportunity to reach out and to build some trust in other ways.
Excellent. And the grappling, I think, is the real work, right?
Yeah, it is. It's grappling, and it's just, yeah. What do you do?
Awesome. All right. What do you absolutely know?
What do I absolutely know? Man, what do I know? I know that I don't know everything. That's probably the only person that I know that knows everything is my 21-year-old daughter. She knows everything. And I said, I can't wait till she gets to the point where she realizes how much she doesn't know.
Just wait. I thought you were going to say something about barbecue. Last time we talked, you seemed to know how to make some good barbecue.
No, I do make good food. And my food is tasty. But I think I just realized that I don't know everything, and I'm fine with that. It just bothers me that people just say, oh, I know this is right. This is absolutely right. No, it's not. It'll change tomorrow. Right. We'll find out something new. Everything that you know now, it'll be wrong. In the next 10 years, they're going to find out how great bacon is for us. Bacon is the best thing that you can do for your health. Eat bacon every day, you'll live 100 years.
Let's hope that happens. All right. So then I also, wrapping this up, okay. I asked you to pick 3 numbers, 1 through 50.
Okay.
So I have icebreaker cards, which are easy, intermediate, or deeper level questions.
Okay.
There's 50 of them.
All right. I thought I won a prize.
You picked 2, 6, and 24. 2,
6, and 24. All right.
All right. So number 2 is easy question.
Easy.
If you were given $1 million, how would you spend it? And what if you had to give it away?
Oh, wow. If I had to give it away, I would do a scholarship fund. My wife and I have talked about that. So we set up a scholarship for students to be able to attend college, get some kind of training, if I had to give it away. But if I was going to spend it, I would, probably do something nice with travel somewhere nicely. And then I would open up some type of business like a popcorn store or some type of franchise so that I could, support myself long-term and travel and see the world.
Excellent. Great. Okay. Number 6 is also an easy question.
Okay.
Name the most beautiful place to which you have been.
The most beautiful place that I've been. It would probably be Hawaii. I think Hawaii would probably be the most beautiful place that I've been.
Great.
It even smells nice. Hawaii smells nice like when you go.
Oh, it does. That's true. Okay, and the last one, number 24, is an intermediate question. You avoided the deep questions. Good job.
Good.
If you discovered that you had 1 year left to live, what would you do?
Well, there are certain people that I would want to go see, people I would call and, make, just tell them how appreciative I was of having them in my life. So I want to leave making sure everyone knew where they stood. I mean, in a good way, not negative people. Then I would go travel. I would try to hit every continent, as many countries as I could, and hopefully spend a lot of that time with my family, traveling and creating new experiences. So I would go out on a high note.
That's great. I'm similar, I think. I would travel and eat everything.
And eat. Yeah, that's right. You can just eat whatever.
Mm-hmm. You promise? Okay.
Yeah.
I don't have to suffer the consequences.
Right.
Excellent. Well, Glenn, it has been wonderful chatting with you. If people are looking for you or wanting to get in touch with you, where should they go?
It's so easy. GlenGuyton.com. That's my website. I have contact information on there. My email is glenG@glenguyton.com. All my social media is at Glen Guyton. So I just made it easy for you. So remember my name, which sometimes people call me Guy. I don't know why they do that. They get it mixed up, but it's Glen with one N. We couldn't afford that second N. GlenGuyton.com. It's real simple.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. And I hope you have a really great time. Thanks.
All right. You do. Have a happy holiday.